things up with Bill Landis, the podcast.
Oh, wow. I guess I'll ask it. Ryan, do you have a starting quarterback?
We do. Will Howard will start the first game against Akron. He is our starting quarterback. I think that, Chip has done a great job of rolling the quarterbacks from the first day of spring all the way to now. I think we're 12 or 13 practices in here. So you're talking almost 27, 28 practices. And when you take the aggregate of all the numbers, Will graded out significantly ahead of the other guys in the teamwork. And, Devin right now would be the number 2. Now we still have a big scrimmage on Saturday. So these guys are going to continue to work. Julian, Lincoln, Air, they're all going to, compete, going to try to get as many reps as we can. We are currently still rolling 3 groups. So there's a lot of reps to go around. But we're excited about Will being the starter. Will has really taken a command of the offense, I believe. You feel him in the huddle. You feel his experience. I think he did a really good job, as we talked about, of changing his body in the offseason. So he's become a threat both with his legs and with his arm. And the more he understands what he's doing out there, and when he does, he's really executing very well. I think the guys are excited, when he gets in the huddle. Not to say that they're not excited when the other quarterbacks are in there, but they do feel Will. And, I know he's excited about leading the team.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
I'll let everybody else ask about the quarterbacks. What's the situation on finding a third tackle, third guard, second center right now?
Yeah, so we have finally gotten through some of this funky illness that's going on. So we're finally getting these guys out there, but we're just a little bit behind there. I will say that Tegra's been there the whole time and has really showed improvement. I got to watch the film from today. Today was a physical practice, but I felt him, especially in the last couple drives. I think he's taken a step forward for sure. Seth McLaughlin's been, probably our most consistent offensive lineman in the first couple weeks of practice. And so, we'll kind of see where it goes, through the scrimmage. Carson, was out there a little bit, and Donnie's been out a little bit, Simmons, same thing. So it hasn't been, easy because they've been kind of a little bit in and out. George has missed some time. There's not enough of a body of work to have a, real strong opinion in that area. But I will say for the guys that have been there, like Tegra's, stood out as being able to play starting, as a starting level player and the quality that he's playing at right now. Now, there's still things he needs to improve. And Seth the same way. So we got to get Carson out there. We got to get him, back with his feet underneath him. And, I'll have to look at the film today, but also Saturday will be a big evaluation for those guys.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, if you had a game today, who would be your primary punt returner, primary kickoff returners, and who would be your punter?
Yeah. We have not decided on the punter yet. All 3 of those guys are continuing to work. We do have to make a decision here pretty quick. I will say that all 3 of them have, been solid. The first thing we want them to do is be able to get the ball off in under 1.9. The second thing we want is them with over 4-second hang time. And then the third thing is we want that ball to land somewhere between 40 and 44 yards. So if they can do those 3 things consistently, then we feel like they can be a starter for us. They all haven't done it consistently. They've all shown they can, and they are getting better. Anthony just got here, but he's been able to jump in because he's had some experience. Nick, this is kind of new to him, but you can see the talent. And Joe has been around enough that he understands, how we do things and is the elder statesman there. So, all 3 of them are going to continue to work. We had another punt period today that was live, other than bringing the returner to the ground. We'll take a look at that and see how that was. But they all can do, both the rugby style and the pocket punting. So that's good. But we're not going to name somebody just yet. In terms of returners, Emeka will still, be in the mix, both as a punt returner and as a kick returner. We do have Carnell as a kick returner. Travion is an option back there as well. As punt returner, Brandon Ennis is an option for us. Jeremiah can do it. We do have quite a few guys. So we are going to use multiple guys early in the season and kind of see what that happens. It's hard to do that live, Certainly Emeka has the most experience back there. Jaden Ballard has experience as well. So early on, Brian's going to make some decisions on who that would be, get him in the game, and kind of evaluate it over the first couple games. We feel like we do, for the first time in a while, have several guys that we can go to in that area, and we'll use them, probably use them all early on and see how it goes. But they all deserve an opportunity to have the ball in their hands. They got to be good decision makers. I mean, that's a big part of it now, as you know.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You said he's significantly graded out ahead of a lot of those guys. Is it just the practice on Saturday? How did you start to see him separate himself over the last
a little bit of both. I mean, I think coming off the spring, everything was very new. It was a significant change in terms of scheme and what we ask the quarterback to do. Once he kind of went through the offseason, he changed his body and then came in with a much better knowledge of what was going on. You could see him playing faster, his feet were moving, the ball was coming out with more pace. And then I think after the first week, you just start to see him take control, make good decisions. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, we have a good defense this year, so we don't need, extraordinary play. I did say this at this time last year. We need someone who's going to take care of the football, make good decisions, make the routine plays routinely. He's got to play well on third down. He's got to play well in the red zone and win the game in a 2-minute drill. I mean, that's what we ask our quarterbacks to do. We have a good surrounding cast around him. And so taking care of the ball is very, very important, but then also scoring touchdowns. And I think all of our quarterbacks this year bring a skill set that they can beat you with their feet. They can beat you with their arm. But they got to beat you with their brain too. I mean, that's a big part of it. And it's going to be a long season. So, we're going to have to get really good at our fastball. We're going to have to be able to change things up as time goes on.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, what was the message to Devin? Like, how is he handling this, and what do you want to see from him moving forward?
Yeah. I met with them this morning, all of them together. Had Coach Kelly in there, and Riley and Billy, and we were all in there, and I just kind of shared with the group that we were going to name Will the starter, and felt like he has separated himself, in particular in the last week to 10 days. That right now that Devin would be the number 2, but that is going to continue to be a competition, especially into camp, because we're not done camp yet. We have a big scrimmage on Saturday, so we'll continue to do that. But Devin, has shown the ability to do just about everything we ask him to do. It's the consistency part and taking care of the football part that he's just got to make sure that he does a great job of moving forward. And if he can do that, then he can play and be a contributor for it, because I reminded them again, we all know the story of, with Cardell and JT and Braxton. So I also shared with them that Max Duggan, was a backup the year he went to the Heisman Trophy in the first couple of weeks. So, a big part of being a quarterback is resilience and continuing to work. The minute you faced a little bit of, an obstacle or resistance along the way, you just got to keep pushing. And, we all know the stories of some of the great quarterbacks that have worked through different versions of adversity. So, he had a really good practice today, Devin. Same with the rest of those guys. So they got to keep pushing, and, we all know that we're going to need them along the way. And, we're going to look to try to get them in the game, early in the season when we can.
Third row middle, Dan Hope, Lemon Warriors.
Ryan, other than Will, who are some of the other players who graded out well in that scrimmage on Saturday?
On defense, Arvell Reese really played well. He was the player of the game on defense. And then on offense, Emeka was the player of the game, had 3 really good touchdown catches. The receivers played well in that game. I don't have all the group, but we did do a kind of a mock champions meeting just to make sure that everybody understands what that means, and that's the ultimate goal for each of our guys to grade out a champion. It's the goal of each position coach for their unit to grade out a champion. And if that doesn't happen, they got to figure out why that is. You got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to get to your position coach and figure out why you didn't grade out over 80% in that game. So we'll do that again on Saturday. And then, the next one would obviously be against Akron. But those were the guys who flashed. There were other guys who graded out champions. I think if I say one, I'm going to forget the rest of them. So there were a handful, but I think some of the position coaches were going to grade difficult in this one to make sure they understand that we all got a long way to go.
Austin Ward's podcast, Dot in the Eyes.
Is there a world where Tegra is the starting right guard and the third tackle?
Yeah, but we're trying to keep Tegra at guard right now and let him master that. I think it is hard when you go, especially somebody who hasn't played a ton of football, bouncing back and forth. I will say that, Zen has shown some signs. He really has. And so, we're hoping, that we can find the third tackle from the tackles that we have. George has been out for a while, so it's been hard to get him going. One guy that has flashed that's kind of gone back and forth and has played some tackle is Austin Sarevelt. He's really shown some good signs, and hopefully, this moving from guard to tackle can pay off for him down the road. But yeah, I mean, if we're in the situation we have to move Tegra out, he's done it before, but we really want to keep him at guard if possible to make sure we solidify that, because sometimes you can get into the situation where you move a guy and now you have two positions where you don't feel great, as opposed to solidifying that guard and then let's try to figure out where that guy would be, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I was wondering if the depth on the interior had become elevated to such a point where that would be easier to move Tegra outside instead of vice versa.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Joey Coffin, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, this is the earliest point, I think, in August you've named a starting quarterback. Typically, they've been closer to the season after you've broken camp. Doing it at this point over 2 weeks for the opener, is there any advantage to it? What do you just see how that maybe changes things for your team?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like, quite honestly, Will's taken control of the team in the last 4 or 5 days, and I think I don't think anybody will be surprised in that locker room. But I know that when I went through that as a quarterback, it did give me a little bit of boost. When you're battling, you got to bring it every day. You don't want someone to feel content. Okay, I got the job. I can take a deep breath. It doesn't work that way, but at the same time, it does give you a little confidence to know that, okay, I am the starter, and I can start focus on continuing to lead this team. So, I think there's pluses and minuses to both, but I think the team would tell you that he has taken control of it.
Did last year at all weigh on your mind? That obviously went a couple weeks.
No. I think every year is different. And at this time last year, I thought Devin was gonna be the starter, and Kyle just kind of came on and down the stretch really did a great job. And so going into those first couple games, I couldn't look the team in the eye and say that he's a starter, because they know what they see, and that's a big part of the locker room. And then he won it in the first couple of weeks, and then kind of went from there. So I think every year is different, but I think this situation, this was the right time.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you talked about wide receiver depth at times, and you found the guys to be that 5, 6, and 7 in the rotation. Who kind of stepped up there?
And the receiver? Yeah. Brandon's done a nice job. So has Bryson Rogers. I've been very impressed with Kojo Antwi in special teams. He's run good routes. He's become very accountable. I just like his work ethic. He's really changed his body. He's changed his life. He's changed his habits. I'm proud of the preseason that Kojo's had. And we really need him to be a guy that can help us this year. I see some things in him that are pretty special, and I'm hoping that we can continue to build on that. Jaden Ballard has flashed. He's done that in the past. We need him to be more consistent. Mylan Graham, for a young player, has really had a good 5 days. He kind of got to the point where he had that, we call it, kind of the doldrums of camp, where he's right in that, he can't really get any momentum. And then the last 5 days, he's built his own momentum, made plays. I believe he graded out a champion in the game on Saturday. So that's been encouraging to see from him. Who else would I be forgetting? No, I think that's the group, after the first 3 or 4, those are the next guys, and they've all flashed. I think that we're building depth there. I feel better now than I did certainly, 2 weeks ago. And if Bryson Rogers can continue to play strong and physical and block in the run game and the perimeter run game and catch the ball in contact, he's got tremendous change of direction. He can run routes underneath. He's working on making sure that he's keeping that weight up. I think he wants to be like north of 187, and he's got to be, because that position, as is a physical position, and he's shown that he can do it. And so that would be encouraging to have him there as a weapon for us.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, we talked about the running backs, but James Peoples is a guy who flashed when we were out there. Then we got to talk to him, and he was obviously very impressive. What have you seen from him, and how has he established himself maybe as that third back?
Yeah, another guy who I think has had his best once he got that black stripe off the day before, has really put some good practices together. I think he's getting his rest and he's taking care of himself and he understands what it takes to recover at this level. And he's on his stuff. He's got a great look in his eyes. He's got a great energy when he walks in a building, and you're seeing that the way he runs. He's seeing it faster, doing a better job in protection. So I'm excited about what I've seen the last week from James.
Tim May podcast.
Yeah. We probably asked you this a million times, almost a million and one. Is there a relief factor for a head coach and maybe the coaching staff when you make this call? You understand what I'm saying, of who your starting quarterback is? Yeah, like you said, everything still has to be keeping improving, but that's a major decision, right? I mean, from your vantage point.
Yeah.
Do you feel a little bit of a weight off your back in some respects?
I think that when it's really, really close and in the locker room is divided, it's a little bit different. I don't know if that's the situation here. But I think right now, again, I think that the team, feels Will and feels his presence. And so I don't think it's going to be, huge news to the locker room. I think they see it. And I think maybe just a little bit of what you're talking about, but I think it's a little bit different when, it's like neck and neck and you got to make that call. And, because everybody has their thoughts on that. They're with these guys year round, and Devin's done a nice job as well. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's shown good leadership, but I just think on the field, Will has separated himself.
And you going into Saturday scrimmage, what is the biggest question that's still out there in your mind about this football team and about maybe a position?
I don't think
you keep talking about right guard, but it sounds like Tegra. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get anything quite like answered on Saturday. I think we'll learn more information and continue to move forward. I mean, we know how long this is going to be, and we're continually trying to take the next step in certain areas and build this foundation. And Saturday will be one more piece to the puzzle. Coming off the field today, I feel differently than when I did when I woke up this morning, because we learned something about our team today. I think it'll be the same thing on Saturday. Will there be some positions won? Probably. Yeah. I don't know exactly who and where and how that looks, but again, it's going to be a long year and we need depth. We're going to need everybody. So, we're going to get 3 groups, reps on Saturday and let them all go and try to build as much depth as we can. But again, it's not going to be anything revolutionary. I don't think,
Is Julian in the running for the second team quarterback? Julian Sayin?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he is.
And why? I mean, just.
Yeah, well, he has a tremendous ability to locate the football. The ball comes out quick. His mind moves quick. You guys have all seen the talent. The thing for Julian is just, getting more and more reps. And we say, like, when you get out there, you're either remembering what you're doing, you're learning what you're doing. And, for him, a lot of times, he's still learning out there. He's trying to figure it out. And, it's a little bit different than where he came from in terms of a jump from high school to college, but you see the talent, and, the faster he learns, the faster he's getting it on the field. He's going to play a lot of football at Ohio State, and, when he gets on the field is going to be up to him.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
With staff now being able to coach the players on the practice field, this camp, how have you seen that play out? How has it been beneficial?
It brings a different energy to the field, because in the past, those folks could really coach the coaches, and they were out there, but they couldn't coach the players tactically or schematically. Now they can, and now it's good, because, if I see someone standing around, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you got to go coach, go. Like, anybody can stand there with their arms folded. You got to coach and bring energy and bring something to the field and inspire and motivate the players. So that's been really, really good. That part's been excellent. And I think our guys have embraced it. And I think the position coaches have allowed them the opportunity to, for those who deserve it, to take some guys in a one-off situation and spend extra time with them, especially the young players.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, first of all, how did Will take it? Also, in the spring, it's no secret he struggled some, which is not surprising considering all the change he had to adapt to. Was there a point when you were concerned about him, whether he'd be the answer, and just how much has his passing developed? Because we know the intangibles, leadership's there. You know, he could run. It's just the passing.
Well, we'll see. But, you only go off of what you see in practice, and I've seen some significant progress made there. The location, I think you'll notice the poise in the pocket. When you're tall as he is, he can see over the line, he can see over the trees, and he's got a good feel in that pocket. Coming off of the spring, there was certainly some things that we needed to work on, and I think Chip did a great job of addressing those things and making sure he knew that he had to go work on those things. But as like in the offseason, he has to do that. He has to go and work with some people. He has to go to work with that and watch the film and figure out how he's to keep his feet moving and the different things that come with it. But a big part of it is when you can anticipate what's going as opposed to react. It's all the difference in the world, and he has a better handle on it. And a big part of that is the work ethic he has put in him. He comes in early, he puts work in, he studies the film, he understands what the schemes are, he understands the structure of the route combinations, and he's done a good job in the run game. He is the run game coordinator. I think, Chip would tell you that. Like, that's a big part of it. And when you're in this offense, you're making a decision every single play at quarterback. There's very few times where you just hand the ball off and can take a deep breath. We try to do that every now and again, but it's a lot, and he can handle it, and he's done a good job of making sure that he's prepared for the preseason, and it's showing.
When you told him?
Yeah, he was seemed to be excited, but we were in the room with the other quarterback, so he wasn't going to jump up and down in front of them. But I assume he was excited. But you have to ask him.
We got time for just one more. Doug Maurice, Kings of the North.
Where do you stand with your tight ends right now, and how do you feel about your ability to play 12 personnel when you want to?
I think our tight ends have made progress. Will Kazmarek has shown the ability to be durable, be accountable, to play in the pass game, to play in the run game. G's been in and out a little bit. I think Jelani Thurman is somebody that we need to continue to improve. He has the ability. He has the competitiveness. I love being around him on the field. He's just got a great way about him. He's learning how to continue to finish. There's a couple of clips that we showed the team the other day of him finishing down the field and playing hard, continuing to be focused on his job and knowing exactly what to do when he's on the field. Playing tight end is not easy. Certainly not easy anywhere you play, but certainly not easy at Ohio State. I've said this all the time. You got to run routes like a receiver. You got to block like an offensive lineman. And you got to protect like a running back. And after the quarterback, that what we ask our tight ends to do, there's a lot that's involved with it mentally. And it isn't just that part of it. You got to know what to do, but then it's also just the wear and tear of the position and being able to sustain. He's run some really good routes, in particular in the red zone. He can win against man-to-man. He's got good length. But he needs to keep coming. He's not quite there yet, but we're excited about where he's going. Pat Gerd has been a solid player for us. He is going to get on the field. Bennett Christian has probably played his best football since he's been here in the last week. I'm excited about that. But we got to keep going. We got a long way to go, but there is some positive momentum in that room.
And with your two main running backs, are you guys still formulating exactly once you get to the season how you want to rotate them, series to series, situational, red zone? Like, are you still working on that, or do you have an idea?
Yeah, we're still working on it. I talked to Locke the other day. He's got some ideas on that. But yeah, we are still working on it. And I think we're getting an idea of, what their strengths are, but ultimately, we're going to roll them and it's going to be a long season, and they're both going to get a lot of carries.
Coach,
thanks guys. Yep.
Kelly? Folks, we're going to go 12 minutes with Coach Kelly. So just Andy, we're going to open up. Coach, fourth row right, Andy Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Chip, obviously, Ryan just named Will starter. What have you seen from Will over these last couple of weeks, and what is your reaction to him being started?
Yeah, I think Will's earned it. And we grade everything. Obviously, he graded out the highest at the position. There's a lot of data-driven information with that in terms of decisions that he makes on the field. Running offense, and it's just as critical to be that guy in the run game as it is in the pass game in terms of what we ask the quarterback to do here. So I think he's really worked extremely hard in the offseason. from the end of spring ball on April 13th to now, he's made great strides. But, we gave him a plan over the summer to work on, and he took it and ran with it. So, where he is now is pretty impressive. And the one thing that he has is he has experience. He's been in a huddle. He's been in a huddle in a lot of games. He's been in a huddle in big games. So, this isn't new to him. Columbus is new to him, but playing college football isn't new to him. So I think that experience, really started to shine through here during camp, and, excited to see where he goes with this.
Deep left field wall, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Coach, I certainly don't want to put words in Ryan Day's mouth, but it seems like the last few times he's kind of gone through this exercise of naming a starting quarterback, that being able to trust that quarterback to make good decisions has been pretty high on his pecking order. What is most important to you when you're looking at a quarterback in terms of evaluating skill sets, decision-making, all of that?
Yeah, I think decision-making is at the top of the list for all quarterbacks, just because that's what the game is. It's are you putting us in the right play? Are you getting us out of a bad play? Are you making the decisions to throw the check down and try to, instead of forcing it into coverage? It's not just who has the strongest arm, but the decision-making process has always been at the top of the list. And then after that, it would be repetitive accuracy and then athleticism. And I think Will has all three of those. His ability to help us in the run game is going to be a really big plus for us this year. Because he's not just a guy that's going to hand it off back there. I think people are going to have to respect him with the ability to run. Again, part of his work ethic in the offseason, I mentioned it the other day, he ran 22 miles an hour this summer at 236 pounds. So, there is a threat of a run from that position. So you're going to have to defend 11. Some teams, when you play against them, you have to defend 10 because the quarterback's not going to hurt you in the run game, but Will can if you do. Now, there's not going to be a ton of quarterback-driven run where we're just snapping the ball to him like he's Tim Tebow and just ramming him up in there. But there are certain packages that we have for our quarterbacks to make sure that we're keeping defenses honest. And I think, as you said, decision-making, repetitive accuracy, and that athleticism, I think Will has all three of those.
So following up on that, how would you evaluate Devin and Julian in particular and their decision-making from what you've seen from them?
They're both do a really good job. I think that's the one thing about it. This was not one guy's here and the rest of them just didn't show up. They all competed every day. And I think the room is really, it's a great room to be in. They all are really, truly care about each other. They enjoy each other's success. We talk about the word mudita, which means I vicariously derive joy from other people's success. And they're like that. When another quarterback makes a play, those guys are fired up. It's a really close-knit group. I know every one of them wants to be the starting quarterback, but I know they're not disappointed that it's Will because they really care about him. So all of those guys did a really, really nice job. They do a good job in decision-making. They do a good job in repetitive accuracy. Right now, Will's just above those guys.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan said that Julian Sayin's most certainly in that competition to be the backup quarterback. I guess just how close is he to Devin right now? Where does maybe Devin have a step on him, and how can he close that gap with the time you have left?
Yeah, I'm not a predictor of anything. So, it's always about what was done. We evaluate it and then we work off of that. So I'm not going to make any predictions on how it goes forward. But I thought Devin had a really good camp. This was a really close competition. And I think all three of those guys, and Lincoln too, were really in the mix at that spot. And then we'll continue to go. And the one thing we talked about that I think everybody here knows, even better than I do, is that you just mentioned the name Cardell Jones. They won a national championship. He started the season off at 3. And there's a million stories about that. And I think our players are really conscious about that.
To that point, whoever does win that backup job ultimately, do you feel like maybe more pressed to get those guys into meaningful snaps during games than maybe you would in other years where, because those guys don't have that experience to lean on?
I mean, ideally, but you don't have control of that. It'd be great if we can get these guys valuable reps in these games. But if it's a slugfest, and it's a 28-27 ball game, in the back of your mind, you're not thinking about, hey, I got to get my second guy some reps now. We don't win this game, So I think how the game dictate themselves, then you'll have a plan. But most of the time when you have a plan, it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. So just ask all those bettors out there that lose a lot of money every weekend, right? It doesn't go exactly how you think it's going to go. So you've obviously loved to get everybody reps, but you'll take it as the games come.
Far right, Kelly and Stitz, WSYX.
Coach Kelly, you mentioned that there was a progression with Will through the spring to now him taking steps. But was there a specific moment that you guys saw in practice or the scrimmage that solidified the job?
I wish there was. And most of the time there isn't, and it's you talk about that with people's Heisman campaigns and like what won them the Heisman, was it this specific play? But it's the process of what they did over the course of the time. And I think with Will, it's over the course of time what he did, and again, he was probably a little behind when he got here because he got here. Devin and Lincoln had been here. They've been in this offense. They had seasoned reps in this offense, and Will and Julian and Eric just gotten here. So they were just trying to catching up during the spring. We talk a lot, like Ryan talked about, are you remembering? Are you learning? Most of the spring, every single day for Will, Aaron, and Jules was learning every day because there was a new install every day. And they kind of just figured this out. Now we're putting more stuff in, where Dev and Lincoln had been through that before. So I think when the things settled down and he could go through all the spring cut-ups, watch film on his own, kind of study on his own, you started to see him. So when we started to meet again, when we got back here in August, you could see that he had a really good command of it because of the time that he put in between April 13th and then we started back up on the 31st.
Fifth row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic.
Chip, when Brian talked a lot, and you talked a lot about Will's consistency, kind of his growth in the offense, but how important is, say, a scrimmage when you have a quarterback down? How important is seeing him in that time, and how did he stand outside?
Yeah, well, offensively, we honestly in the first day practice got our tails kicked. That is a pretty good defense. But last Saturday, I think they really showed up, and they really when the lights were on and we had a scrimmage situation, they all made really good plays. No one turned the ball over that day. We were really consistency. I think we completed it over 70%. They were efficient with the football, and we were really good mix of run and pass. So, in that one scrimmage that we had last Saturday, you could see them, but they all played well. And that was a day that I think all of them kind of stepped up last Saturday. So, we're hopeful that we can do the same exact thing this Saturday and then continue to build upon it. So,
Deep middle, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Chip, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, you mentioned that you thought there were 3 NFL caliber offensive linemen starting on this team.
Mm-hmm.
As you've gotten to experience the depth a little bit more, do you have anybody that you're kind of renowned as like a run guru guy? So I'm curious, where do you see the next wave of offensive linemen in this program, and who's catching your eye of the guys that are not in the starting line?
Good question. 'Cause I think we've been forced because of the illness that's gone through. Jimmy spent some time out. Donnie spent some time out. Fitz has spent some time out. Carson's been out for a little bit. Luke's been out for a little bit. So I think Zen and Austin are 2 guys that have really stepped up and kind of caught your eye that, maybe not as much as it was in the spring, but they're taking advantage of their reps. And I think, one of the things you always preach as a coach, and sometimes it's coach speak, don't count your reps, make your reps count. But those 2 guys are 2 guys that have really made their reps count. I think Tegra, because Tegra's taken every snap since, hasn't missed a day. He's made his reps count. Seth has made his reps count. So, those 4 guys have probably been the most consistent just because the other guys have been out, so it's been in and out, in and out, in and out. So, but those 4 guys have kind of stood out for us.
Ian Moore, he's a guy that was recruited, but we haven't really talked much about freshman offensive linemen because there's just no real reason to generally. But
well, unless you're his parents.
I'm sure his parents.
Let's just make sure there's never no reason to talk about it.
For our purposes.
Yes.
What have you seen out of Ian?
Ian got his black stripe removed today, which was really cool. So I think really great timing by you. Great question. And I know you know a lot about this place. But he did actually have his black stripe removed today. So he's come along too, but he's another guy that's benefited, from those extra reps that sometimes they don't normally get. Hi, Jelani. It's my guy.
Third row left, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, continuing with the offensive line, you talked about the quarterbacks a little bit in the scrimmage. How have you seen them, as some of this illness has started to, I guess, relieve? How have you seen them respond to the challenge that this defensive line presents in practice?
Iron sharpens iron, when you got to go against Jack and JT and Talik and Kenyatta in that group every day, you can't help but get better. And I think those guys have taken advantage of those opportunities that they've gotten, and you can see growth, from the spring until now. So, I think the one thing that we know is it's going to be a long season. So you got to develop those guys. You're not going into the season with 5 linemen. It's just not going to happen when you're playing a 16-game season. So when you're going to play that many games, you got to have as much depth as you can. And I think because those guys, you never wish an illness or a person to miss practice on anybody, but there are sometimes some benefits of it. And the benefits of it is those guys that gotten extra reps in these last week or so have really benefited from it.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
With Austin, I think we were out there earlier in practice, obviously, so all has changed since then, but he was working a lot at left guard. And Ryan just mentioned the fact that he's been moving a tackle a little bit. What about his skill set do you think works at tackle?
He's done both, and I think the one thing, he's over 6'5", he's long, so he's got the size to play tackle. but he's put together. He kind of looks like a guard, but until you pull up on him and go, wow, I didn't know he was actually that tall. We had that conversation the other day. Like, what is he? You know, he's 6'5", He's got the requisite arm length to play tackle. And to have guys that are position versatile, that aren't your starters, that can be guard tackles or center guards is critical in terms of being able to do that. You know, so you're always trying to find really your top 8, you know, who's your backup center, who's the backup guard, who's the backup tackle. You know, if there's someone that can be a guard tackle, then that's obviously beneficial.
What do you guys like about Luke at center so far?
Same thing, just developing depth, you know, and I think the more versatile you can make yourself, the more opportunities you're going to get to go on the field, because you don't know who's going to go down, you know, so you don't want to be caught. You know, that's the one position, because it's critical in terms of decision making. They usually are in charge of the blocking scheme in terms of where we're going and calling the directions out and all those other things. But you also have to be consistent with the snap. So the fact that we can get valuable reps with him and Padilla and Seth and those guys in there is and Carson has been beneficial, because you can never have too many centers.
Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom, Letterman row.
Chip, for the scrimmage on Saturday, was it pretty vanilla, or were you able to kind of let it rip with scheme and what you've been trying to install?
Yeah, I mean, they are not vanilla. So I think we you know, whatever we had installed and they had installed, we did. There wasn't any game planning that went on, but it was, you know, really just, I think that going back to it is our quarterbacks had an opportunity to be successful, because they were really sharp in terms of, we want to get completions, understanding the game of football. I thought they played situational football really well. What are we trying to do on first down? You know, we're in backed up territory trying to get 2 first downs. Are we taking shots down the field in this situation? No, we're not. We're trying to get 2 first downs and get it moving. Now that we've gotten a couple of first downs, now we can start to take some shots, but to watch them play the game within a game, because in the other practice periods, a lot of those times they're scripted, so the play is called, you know, and then sometimes it's like, well, what are we going to do here? And I was like, I would never call that play against that defense. I didn't know they're going to be in that defense. But when you get into the feel of the game and the flow of the game and how they're calling it, then you can kind of adjust and put your players in situations to make plays.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Hey, Chip, I'd like to get a sense of kind of the message that you had for Will at the end of spring practice, which was up and down for him, understandably. I mean, was it a thick notebook of stuff? Was it a long speech? I mean, what you can be with them and talk to them in the summer more than you used to be, obviously, but what was kind of the message to him? What did you want to see him work on and improve?
Yeah, just the specifics of the position, you know, so really footwork at the quarterback spot when you're throwing the ball, you know, your ability to set up, your ability to have a base, you know, your ability to drive the football really starts from your feet up. And I think he worked extremely hard from that standpoint in terms of throwing the ball. I know Ryan had mentioned earlier in the season, he felt like there was more zip this camp than we were during the springtime. You know, and then really the grasp of the offense, because I also think you can put zip on the football when you know where it's supposed to go. You know, when you go back there and you're somewhat tentative with it, if they're not coming out of your hand as quick, because your decision-making process isn't that. So really watching film, you know, and Will's a huge film junkie. He's always in the quarterback room watching something, trying to study it, going through it, calling plays out, working on calling a play out of a huddle. You know, how do I, because sometimes he can get really wordy, you know, to practice all those things, understanding that aspect of the game. But I think from a physical standpoint, really getting his feet going in the pocket, being able to put a little bit more zip on the ball, you know, mechanically making sure that kinesthetic chain is all working in one motion at the same time. And then just the grasp total of the offense of what we're doing and getting a really good feel of it, that I feel really good about this. And then being able to communicate, like this package is, I'm still a little, all right, then let's grind on this one a little bit. How do you feel about quick game? I feel really good about that. All right, then let's move and find out what you know, because we're teachers, and teachers is just really, education is the transportation of knowledge, but you can't transport that knowledge to an individual if you don't know what he knows. So he was really open with his feedback of, you know, I feel really good about this. I think I need to work on this. So spending time with him and just getting a chance to visit with him on those things is, I think, really shown up for him this camp.
Last question, Austin Horton podcast.
Chip, sounds like Emeka had another pretty good scrimmage on Saturday. With the variety of ways you might be able to use him, does he remind you of someone you've had previously, or is he in a box on his own?
I think he's in a box on his own. A lot of the slot receivers that I've had in the past have been smaller, you know, and been somewhat mismatches from that standpoint. But Mek's ability to go in and dig out linebackers, you know, Mek's ability to carry the football, and then Mek's ability to get open and make really tough contested catches, I think is really what kind of sets him apart, because he can do everything in there. You know, I think sometimes prototypical slot receivers, that small, quick, get in and out of things, but it really affects you in the run game because you're trying to run the ball and he's an inside guy, and now all of a sudden he's at the point of attack, and all of a sudden he's kind of looking over his shoulder, hoping they don't run him over. Where Mech isn't like that. Mech really can do a lot of things, and to have that versatility, I think is something that hopefully we're gonna have a lot of fun with this fall, trying to put him around and put him in different positions and allow him to make plays because he really is a playmaker.
The guy leading that group though.
He didn't ask you. He didn't. I'm learning. Yes.
Yeah, having a guy like that leading that group though, how huge is that? I guess from a.
It's great, and I think you can talk to the receivers, but I think the tone that he set with that group, and it really is a special group. That whole group of guys is a special group, and for him to be the leader from the front, because he leads by example, but he also is a really good vocal leader. Like he holds those guys accountable, holds the whole group accountable, and most importantly, holds himself accountable. So.
Joey Coffin, dispatch, would you like to interrupt there too?
Thank you, Jerry. Just wanted to ask, do you guys gain any advantage or by having clarity at quarterback announced 16 days before an opener, 2 weeks? Does it help you at all?
I think it does. I think you know who's going out there with the ones, and I think it also for the offense, you're starting to get into gel. And every time I've been in quarterback competitions, it expresses itself and it's authentic when it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen until the week of the first game. Sometimes you go into the first game, you still haven't made it, so you're going to play two quarterbacks in that. But I think from now until it's 2 weeks from the Saturday that we're playing a football game, is that we're getting that offensive line back together. That one unit is starting to get together. Who are those guys? Who's the tight end? You got Trayvon. You got Q. You're pretty solid in terms of where you are at wide receiver. Now those guys got to get reps together. So not that you just name those guys, but how does that 11 mesh together as a group, and how do they do it? And them learning Will and Will learning them. Just little things. It's the game is always one in the details. And I think the longer the same group of guys is together, the better you're going to be with the details part of it. So I think getting him in there early is beneficial from that standpoint, just because it's more time on task with one unit.
Coach, we have one more question. Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Chip, you mentioned that Tegra has played or hasn't missed a rep, I guess. What stands out about him as you watch him, and as a guy who's, I think he's like 6'6", 330 playing guard?
That's what stands out about him.
Well, I'm sure it does. But does he? I just heard sometimes people describe sort of your desire for offensive linemen to be maybe like a little more athletic and movement oriented.
Yeah, I think Tegra's really athletic and can really sink his hips, and he's long. He's really long, and when you can play long on the offensive line and keep defensive linemen away from people because of your length, that's a really big deal for us. So we like offensive linemen that are big, because big people beat up little people. So we like Tegra a lot.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, folks, our final interview today, Coach Jim Knowles. Again, we're going to go right around 12 minutes, and I'm trying to at least get one organization a question each. I'll do the best I can. We'll open it up with Pat Murphy, fourth row, 24/7 Sports.
Jim, the helmet communication that is being installed this year, we talked to Ryan sort of about that already, but on the defensive side of the ball, how do you envision using that? I assume you will have multiple guys that can use it, but how does that come into play on defense?
Yeah, you're gonna have to kind of see how it goes, how offenses are gonna change because of it. It starts with our Mike linebacker. We'll have other guys who are up and prepared in the defense. You want to have veteran guys with it, so there's some organization to it that guys have to have extra helmets. If one guy's out of the game, the other guy has to be ready to put his comms on. So there's some details to it. We're working through it.
Deep right, Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Hey, Jim, Chip Kelly said in the first 7 or 8 practices that your defense was whipping his tail. I'm curious, is that the way you would assess it, and what did you see in those battles?
No, I would, that's kind, but it's a battle every day. I mean, you got offense, great receivers, a good running game. It's just a battle every day. It's back and forth, and iron sharpens iron, and everybody's challenging each other and trying to get better.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Jim Ryan said that Arvell Reese was the defensive player of the game on Saturday in the scrimmage. What have you seen from Arvell that's propelled him to earning something like that? And do you think that he can help you guys?
Yeah, I think he can help. Arvell has made great strides since he's been here, you know, and when he's on the attack and he's playing downhill, he's really as good as anybody. You know, he makes plays. Now, there's a lot that goes into, right now he's working at the Mike linebacker. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of details of the game and formations and checks. And, you know, he's constantly getting better at that. But when he's on the attack, he's really good.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Jim, ideally, you'd like to have your Will and Mike be interchangeable if they can. Are Sonny and CJ to that point yet, given their relative experience?
To be able to move to the Mike position? We haven't done much of that, a little bit here and there just to get him ready for it. We'll have to see. We'll have to see about that because, you know, both those guys also play our Sam position. So sometimes there's three guys in the game. So you don't want to overload them with too much so that they become, you know, hesitant. So we haven't done that a whole lot.
Right in front of him, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Jim, what have you seen from the defensive side of the ball and Will Howard over the last 2 weeks that enabled him to emerge as a starting quarterback?
Well, he's making all the throws. I mean, he's you know, stands in the pocket, got great vision, arm strength. You know, we got great receivers. He's putting the ball in places where only the receiver can catch it. So, you know, to me, it's not just the arm strength, but he's making the pinpoint passes too.
Tim May, the Tim May podcast.
Yeah, going into Saturday, what's your biggest question going into Saturday scrimmage that you'd like to see maybe answered about your defense? If you follow what I'm saying there, is there still something glaring out there in your mind?
Sure. Now it goes back to safety depth. You know, I think I've mentioned it before, but you know, we feel good about our starters, but you know, they're the guys behind there with Malik and really McLean has really emerged, you know, as a guy who's going to have to be ready to play. But you got kind of two guys that are unproven and still learning, and like every day in practice is a learning experience for them and a challenge, particularly if they get to go against our best receivers, you know, so that's our safety depth needs to come along.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Jim, 2 weeks ago, you were said something similar about the nickel spot. Do you feel better with Lorenzo being back out there? Or do you still feel that's a work in progress to find somebody behind Jordan? Have your thoughts changed since 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, you know, having Lorenzo back has really, to me, upped the level of that second defense. I think he's talented, so I think he's emerging as a guy we can count on.
Fourth row right, welcome to the beat, Stefan Kroshnik from Cleveland.com.
With there being the practices or the scrimmage you guys just had, what kind of stands out to you about Chip's offense and what makes it difficult to defend?
Well, he's, you know, all kinds of things. You know, I think very talented in the run game and the calls and keeping you off balance. And, you know, the more our quarterbacks are learning what he does, you can see how they make adjustments because every defense has holes, you know, and he's really good at finding it and challenging you to try to cover everything when we all know that's not possible. So, you know, it's just him kind of being able to find where your weaknesses are. And then as the quarterbacks learn things, it's showing up in practice.
Third row left, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
From that second wave of defensive linemen, who's been making the most noise and catching your eye the most in these practices here?
I'll tell you what, I think they've all been doing well. Caden McDonald, he shows up all the time. Curry and KJ and Mitch Melton, I think, are all extremely capable. all those guys can play. No problem with any of them in there. Hero Canoe, Hero Flash. He does flash. He does flash. Looking for some consistency out of him, but he's flashing. So I think we really have a strong second unit there. As you know, we play a lot of guys, so they're all going to play.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I know coaches worry all the time about everything, but for you to have the biggest concern be backup safety, you got to feel pretty good. I mean, just how good do you feel about this defense right now?
Yeah, you're right. And I never feel good, right? There's constant, it's just constant adjustments and to formations and learning and getting the checks right. We're putting more stress on them, to be able to have some different calls that we can make versus variety of formations. So, I feel good about our players now in just terms of, we're trying to create more pressure and create some different scheme-wise coverage adjustments. And I think that's just a constant learning experience.
How's Edric Houston played?
I don't know, for a young guy, Edric, he flashes. He's strong at the point of attack. He's got a great personality. And he'll always go hard. He's flashing. I could definitely see him in there this year.
Second row right, Doug Maurice, Kings of the North.
Jim, you've been coaching for a while. I'm not asking you to get out over your skis, but just when you're watching that scrimmage on Saturday, coaching that scrimmage, just both sides of the ball, the talent, the players, the opportunity, the potential to just get a vibe of like what this team has a chance to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I'm probably not the best guy to comment on that because I'm so hyper focused on the details of the defense that if the offense makes a good play, then I'm blaming myself and trying to figure out what happened and fix it. So but I know that we have a lot of talent. We have a lot of great guys. We got a great attitude. Guys are coachable. So, when you're in the middle of it, you don't ever really step back and take a look at it. You just keep trying to push and push.
Got time for one or two more. If I missed someone, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
I don't know if we've ever asked you, but you're not in a room anymore. You don't have a designated position anymore. And I think when you were brought in here, it was kind of a thing of like you're kind of this mad scientist kind of guy. How much has that freed you up to maybe be more creative and come up with some of the looks that you've kind of been hitting at really since back in the spring? How much more creative have you been able to be in coming up with stuff since you're not necessarily in charge of it?
Right. I think it gives me, I get to kind of move around the rooms. So I get to see how those things are being implemented. A lot of the creativity happened during the summer and the off season. You're able to hire James and he can take that over, and that really freed me up. Back in that all off season to kind of look at everything and come up with some new ideas. Really don't want to be creative week to week. You want to have all of that in camp and just kind of be able to pull from it. So a lot of that stuff came in the off season, but having James really freed me up.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, to follow up on the helmet comms, would Cody be the guy to wear that?
Yes.
Is it, now that you've had more time with it, does it give you any advantage?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I mean, that'll have to be seen. It really depends how the offensive plays it. If I have more time to talk, but right now I haven't been doing that because I want to see what they can do and how they can adjust, and he needs to handle everything on the field. But there may be that possibility based on the game clock and what I can see in the offense. As long as before you get to 15 seconds, there may be that opportunity, but I haven't been using it right now. I'm letting him see what they do.
Will there be a point preseason where you will use it?
Probably not. Probably not because, I want to see what they know. It's more important what they know than what I know. I think as you get into a flow of a game, depending on what the offense does, then I'll be able to interject.
Bill Landis, the podcast, Kings of the North.
Jim, last time we talked to you were talking about wanting to be more intentional about the skies and finding some new ways to, I guess, generate some pressures, but while maintaining that kind of 4 down front. Is trying to check those boxes while staying in a 4 down front in any way restrictive? Does that make it more challenging when you're trying to do it while remaining a little rigid up front?
No, I think you take what you're doing, and that's my job, to find the different ways to do it. If you're in a different package, you go from there. But I don't think it's restrictive at all. It just is who we are.
And final question, Andy Baxter from Letterman Row.
Jim, you touched on Malik and we need him to step up at safety. What have you seen from him this summer? I know he missed a lot of spring. Where has he kind of grown in year 2 so far?
He's growing in confidence. He's growing in confidence, and that's a huge thing for a safety, because you got to, manage the back end, and you got to be able to play the run and pass and decipher between the two. So for him, it's just all about confidence. He's got the talent, so it's just a matter of reps and confidence.
Great, Coach. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, folks.